Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be talking about disenfranchisement. You may have heard this phrase before. It's a very common phrase that we use surrounding the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. Disenfranchisement is essentially where people are not allowed to use their right to vote. Certain barriers or roadblocks are set up to prevent them from accessing the polls, registering, and being informed voters. A few common instances of this during the era pre-civil rights movement were things like literacy tests, where you had to be able to read a certain amount in order to vote. Of course, these literacy tests were only generally applied to African Americans wanting to vote and not their white counterparts. Other methods were things like poll taxes. African American groups are generally more likely to live in poverty, especially in eras like post-Civil War America, where most of them were tenant farmers who had just gotten freed from slavery. So, poll taxes were a common way of doing it. And things like voter registration were also invented to become barriers to letting people vote. You had to be able to read and write and tell them you were a U.S. citizen in order to have access to the polls. Some common methods today of disenfranchisement include things like gerrymandering, where borders are drawn up in certain ways to take away the voting power of certain groups. Areas that are more diverse are often cut up into smaller bits by lawmakers attempting to silence minority votes and keep certain people's votes from having much power, especially because of the way our system works, where the majority vote is where the president comes from in terms of each state. Other methods of disenfranchisement that are common today are things like high incarceration rates, particularly for people of color. Many felons and incarcerees are not allowed to vote. So if you get convicted of a crime and put in jail, you can't use your voting power anymore, which takes away your right to vote. Tune in next time to hear us talk about more subjects related to voting, and so you can prepare better for the 2024 elections. I'll see you then.